What happens when a left-wing, South Asian, Democratic Socialist mayor-elect from New York sits across from Donald Trump in the Oval Office? And the outcome is not a confrontation, but an oddly warm exchange that leaves both sides confused and political strategists scrambling? Hold that thought, because by the end of this video, I will tell you exactly why this moment could reshape New York politics, and maybe even national politics, in ways no one saw coming. Let's begin. Donald Trump welcomed New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani to the White House, with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for loyal allies, not someone who once called him a fascist and a despot. Cameras captured Trump smiling, leaning in, complimenting Mamdani's ideas, even saying he wouldn't mind living in New York under his leadership. Coming from Trump, who has spent years criticizing New York leadership, that alone was headline material. But to many observers, especially South Asians watching from the sidelines, something else stood out. Mamdani wasn't intimidated, he wasn't deferential in a submissive way, and he wasn't aggressively combative either. Instead, he played a game that millions of Desi kids know all too well, respectfully nodding along, smiling, letting the elder speak without ever giving up the steering wheel. The Times of India put it simply: this wasn't political genius or revolutionary diplomacy. It was cultural muscle memory. The art of smiling at an elder you disagree with, letting them talk, letting them lecture, while quietly guiding the situation toward your intended direction. Desi training, perfected at dining tables, weddings, and family gatherings long before it ever enters politics. Indian diarist Kedar Gadgil called it the oldest trick in the book. Let them believe they're leading, while you stay in control. Actor and singer Yamuna Meleth called it exactly that, playing within the system while maintaining your own path. Mamdani did just that. When Trump asked if New York loved him, Mamdani didn't dive into conflict. He pivoted: affordability, cost of living, economic pressure. He gently acknowledged why some New Yorkers shifted toward Trump in 2024. He gave Trump validation without giving him ideological agreement. Trump grinned, cameras flashed, and suddenly, the far-right narrative painting Mamdani as an extremist, a jihadist, a danger to America, seemed to wobble. It was such a subtle dance that many missed it entirely. But South Asians recognized it instantly. That polite smile, the gentle nod, the calm refusal to bite the bait, the elegant deflection that says, "I hear you, but I'm not obeying you." Almost like sitting across from an uncle insisting you take his career advice, and you respond with a respectful smile that means absolutely nothing. Therapist Afshana Haki described it perfectly. In South Asian households, kids learn to navigate authority without direct confrontation. Western culture sees bluntness as honesty. But in many non-Western cultures, bluntness is disrespect. So you learn diplomacy, and sometimes, diplomacy looks like agreement, even when it's not. And that is what made the Oval Office moment explosive. Because while Mamdani left with his values intact, someone else walked away politically bruised. Her name? Elise Stefanik. She is currently running for governor of New York, and a large part of her campaign message hinges on one key narrative: that Democrat-backed Zohran Mamdani is a radical extremist, and proof that New York is collapsing under left-wing leadership. Then Trump sat beside Mamdani, praised him, smiled with him, refused to repeat Stefanik's claim that Mamdani is a jihadist, and even said he wouldn't worry about living under Mamdani's New York. In minutes, months of Stefanik's messaging cracked. Her Republican supporters were shocked. MAGA loyalists muttered that Trump just handed Democrats ammunition. Conservative voices online said Democrats could defeat Stefanik simply by replaying clips from the Oval Office. Suddenly, Stefanik is forced into a corner. She can't openly oppose Trump. She needs him for her campaign. But she also can't fully walk back her attacks on Mamdani, because those attacks are the foundation of her pitch to voters. So she chose a tightrope. She doubled down. She said she stands by calling Mamdani a jihadist, while also admitting she might work with him on affordability issues. It's a contradiction, but in modern politics, contradiction is survival. And now the Republican strategy has a new problem. Because if Trump is willing to appear friendly with Mamdani today, he can reverse himself tomorrow. His support shifts, his tone changes. Loyal today, critical tomorrow. Elise Stefanik knows this, her advisors know it, and Republican strategists worry that one unpredictable shift could reroute her entire campaign. Still, Republicans aren't backing down from their 2026 plan. They want to make Mamdani the face of the Democratic Party, proof, they say, that Democrats have gone too far left. Fundraising emails are already flying with dramatic language claiming New York has fallen to socialism. But Mamdani is not the only political risk in this equation. Democrats are nervous too. Because Mamdani may be poised, calm, culturally strategic, but he has never run anything close to the size of New York City. 300,000 employees, city agencies, budget battles, crisis management. It is a world away from signing legislation as an assembly member. And New York voters are divided. Suburban voters heavily disapprove of him. Jewish voters overwhelmingly distrust him, and even Democrats have been split. Some refuse to endorse him at all. So the Oval Office moment wasn't just odd, or funny, or meme-worthy. It was political unpredictability on display, the kind that can trigger ripple effects into 2026, 2028, and beyond. This could reshape voter perception. It could reshape coalition dynamics. It could shift immigrant-driven political power. It could deepen divides or blur ideological lines in ways nobody expects. And that brings us back to the very first question. What happens when a Desi mayor-elect calmly sits across from Donald Trump and walks out without losing himself? Here's the simplest answer. It shows us that power isn't always loud. Influence isn't always aggressive. And sometimes, the person smiling quietly is the one steering the conversation. Whether this moment becomes a political revolution, a short-lived anomaly, or the first chapter in a longer ideological clash, we're watching something new unfold in real time, and it is only the beginning. If you want a deep dive into how this meeting could reshape New York's political future, shift immigrant-driven power, and trigger the next era of Democratic-Republican realignment, comment below. I'll cover it in the next Starscope Daily Breakdown. Until then, keep your eyes on the news, because this story is not finished. Subscribe to Starscope Daily for such stories from the world of politics, celebrity, sports, and more. We promise you will not only stay on top of what is happening, but you will also be delighted. Have a good day, fam.